Hello and welcome to another Stay Wild at Home adventure with Wild Things. I'm Eleanor, the fieldwork manager at Wild Things.
And I'm Paul, I'm the fieldwork instructor at Wild Things. And this week for Stay Wild at Home, we're going to be looking at planting some herb seeds and how seeds germinate.
We have some seeds for you to plant today. We've got parsley, coriander and chives. Coriander has been traditionally used in food and also as a medicinal herb. Coriander grows wild in southern Europe, in the Mediterranean regions, and it's related to carrots. It's particularly used to aid digestion, so to treat diarrhea, colic, flatulence, things like that. So really useful little herb.
So we've also got chives. Chives will be a little bit of a bigger seed. A chive is a herb that is related to the onion family, so onions, shallots, that sort of thing are all the same kind of plant. It grows these tall, quite spiky green leaves and also very beautiful purple flowers. So it's been used for a long time. It's native to Europe. People have been growing it as a herb in gardens for at least since the Middle Ages, but we know that people have been eating it for some 5,000 years, so it's been around for a long time. It's been used for all sorts of other things as well. In the 19th century, apparently, Dutch farmers were feeding it to their cattle to try and give their milk a different flavour. We use it as well as a flavouring in our food, so you can add it to all kinds of stews, you can put it in sandwiches, you can eat it raw, you can cook it as well. Lots of different uses for chives.
Cool. And then we also have parsley. So there's a couple of different types of parsley. There's flat-leafed one or a curly-leafed one. And there's also a root parsley, which is used as a root vegetable, which is interesting. I didn't know about that one before. Parsley is very popular in European cooking. There's evidence that it was first cultivated in the UK in the 16th century. You will have received these little pots for you to put your seeds into, and they work really well on a windowsill, somewhere where they get a little bit of light. So all we're going to do is get the soil, and put it into the pot, push it down a little bit, and then open up the seed packet and carefully scatter onto the soil. These coriander seeds, you can actually see they're a little bit bigger, so you can space them out a little bit and just poke them down so they stay still. Then put a little bit more soil on top so that those seeds are covered. Just going to level that off and then give it a little bit of water. Now, you want to keep the soil damp but not too wet. So this little tray shows when there's a little bit of water over, so you don't want the tray to overfill. Keep it damp, keep it there, and eventually these seeds will germinate and hopefully you'll have some lovely coriander growing.
So also as part of your pack this week, we've given you some wildflower seeds that you can scatter out in your garden in some flower beds. One of the wildflower seeds we've given you are foxglove seeds. So this is a foxglove that's already gone to seed. So foxgloves usually start flowering in June. You might be familiar with them. If you're not, they make these really big flower spikes. So they start flowering from the bottom of the flower spikes, and they have these little thimble-like purpley pinky flowers. Some of them sometimes can be white as well, which start to flower from the bottom of the spike here and work their way all the way up until eventually they flower at the top. And then once they finish flowering, they do what they're doing now, which is making seeds. So all the little flowers here have had pollen brought to them by insects, so bumblebees and other bees. Insects really love this plant. They go up inside the individual little flowers to get the nectar and the pollen out, and then in doing so, in going to the other flowers, they'll transfer the pollen. So what's left here at the moment are the little seed pods. So inside a little seed pod like this, if I've picked one off and I broke it open, there will be, I can shake them out into my hand, there are tiny, tiny, tiny little seeds. many seeds just come out of that one little pod. So obviously this is going to stand here, it's going to move around in the wind when autumn comes, and it'll shake all these little seeds into the surrounding area and make more little foxgloves. Foxgloves are a biennial plant, which means that they take 2 years to mature. So these seeds that get scattered will grow into a little rosette of leaves in the first year, and then in the second year they will put up a big flower spike like this, grow their flowers, and then they will die. So that will be the end of that particular plant, but in the meantime they've scattered all the other seeds around. We call it foxglove. People in olden times suggested that maybe foxes might be able to put them on their feet to be able to walk around really quietly. These things grow usually in shady parts of the woods, so that's also the kind of places where foxes hang out. Other people have suggested it might come from folksgloves, in other words the folk being the fairy folk, and again fairy folk are supposed to hang out in the shadier parts of the woods, which is also where these things grow.
One of the wildflower seeds we've got for you in the packs is an oxeye daisy. They look very similar to these ones, however we're filming a little bit later in the year, and oxeye daisies flower June to August, and we're actually now into September, so this is a slightly different variety. They will look quite similar. So like the ragwort that we looked at before, the daisy family have your ray florets and your disc florets. So there's actually lots of different types of flower, individual tiny little flowers. Oxeye daisies are very popular with the insects, and a study showed that they're really top for the amount of pollen that they produce. So they're really fertile, and also a lot of insects actually want that pollen themselves. So there's some hoverflies here, but they're also pollinated by moths, butterflies, beetles, bees, and loads of different species of flies as well. Oxeye daisies are actually edible, but they're not particularly tasty, so they're used in small quantities in a salad. They also have a couple of medicinal properties, so they've been used to treat whooping cough and asthma, obviously with the help of a herbalist. Yeah, and they look really pretty. They're very fertile. They're commonly found in hay meadows and things like that, and they actually have 26,000 seeds. We won't be giving you 26,000, but just a handful. So they should, once they've flowered and died back, those seeds should keep going, and you should be able to have oxeye daisies for a little while. What you do is you're just going to open up the little packets that we've given you. To plant the seeds, all you need to do is open up the packets, find a suitable location and scatter them. So bare soil works probably a little bit better, but like I said, they will grow in grass as well. And I'd recommend putting them at the back of a flower bed because they can be quite tall. And then you just scatter them on, and the weather and the rain should do the rest.
So another activity that we've sent along some items for you to do is to get a seed to germinate and to watch the seed as it germinates. So usually seeds germinate under the soil or on top of the soil, and we don't really see what happens. But in this case, we have sent you some bits and pieces that will allow you to watch this. So there is a bean. It's a broad bean. We've also given you some kitchen towel. You can use a glass, an old jam jar or anything like that you have around the home, and you'll need some water as well. And the idea is that we are going to trap this broad bean seed between some wet kitchen towel and the inside of a glass, and because it's damp, the seed will then, and because the seed is also getting sunlight, the seed will then germinate and send out a shoot, one heading upwards, which obviously would be the stem, and one heading downwards, which would be the root. But we'll be able to see that because it will be trapped just inside the piece of glass. So what you need to do is you need to take your piece of kitchen towel, or a couple of pieces of kitchen towel, and just make them wet. So I've just got some water here, so I'm just going to make that wet. And we're making it wet both so that the seed has something to start to drink from, and also to hold this kitchen towel to the side of the glass. So I'm putting my hand right in. I've got a little stick here. You might have a spoon or something at home so that you can stick it to the inside of your glass. So that sticks quite well. You then take your bean. It might be quite a good idea to actually soak the bean overnight before you do this, so that the beans have a lot of chance to take up as much moisture as it can. But basically we're going to peel now back a little bit of the edge of this kitchen towel, and we're going to slot the bean between the kitchen towel and the glass, and then push the kitchen towel back over the top, and the bean is now trapped in there. I keep saying trapped, but you know, it's just where it's going to grow. So the kitchen towel goes right to the bottom. The kitchen towel is wet. You've soaked the bean already. So this bean is now going to get everything it needs. It's going to get its sunlight, it's going to get its water, and that's what it's going to need to germinate. So eventually, when you put this, if you take this somewhere and put it on a warm windowsill, you'll be able to see the bean, and from out in the middle here, it'll start sending up a shoot, and up towards the top to be the stem, and one down to be some roots. Once it's done that, you can watch how it grows. Every day it'll do a little bit more. Once you've got a little bit of root and a little bit of stem, if you want to, you can then take it out and put it into a pot and grow a broad bean plant from it. Or you can just continue to watch and see how well it grows out the top of this thing. So every few days this paper will dry out. The bean obviously needs a bit more moisture then, so you can either just very carefully pour some more water onto the kitchen towel, or you can also pour just a little bit of water into the bottom of it, so that the kitchen towel will actually soak it up and bring it up towards the bean. And that way, probably in a few days to a week's time, you'll find that this bean is actually sprouting and is actually germinating. And that's pretty much what all the seeds do. So seeds from all these different plants will all have all the genetic information in them to make a fully grown plant, whether it's something that's bean shaped like this, whether it's something that's a very large seed like coconut, or whether it's something, the smallest seeds, which are little seeds that come from orchids. They all have inside them all the information they need to make their particular plant, be that a broad bean plant, or be that a sequoia, or a big redwood tree. So yes, place this on your windowsill and watch as the bean germinates and starts to grow into a plant.
We hope you enjoy this week's activities, planting your seeds, eating the herbs that you've planted on your windowsills, and enjoying the insects that are coming to the wildflowers in your garden.
And we'll see you next week for another Stay Wild at Home.